What's up?
Sup?
Nothing much.
All right, all right. Uh, what does it show
So
me?
nothing much that I realized that I didn't find any articles this week that I really cared about. That's how really boring to me everything was this week.
There was not a whole lot happening. Um, twin most, 10 most questionable movie or storylines in Pirates of the Caribbean. Oh, apparently everybody's really reaching for stories, huh?
Well, it's probably a BuzzFeed article, and while they're fun to read sometimes, they always are reaching for something.
Shaved stories.
Yeah, a
Well,
lot of times when I've read some of those articles, they're very nitpicky on stuff. It's like, okay, I get it, but like sometimes just turn your brain off and try not to think about it,
yeah, we're talking about Pirates of the Caribbean.
right?
We're not talking about Shakespeare.
Right? I don't know why I can't go very far back on my news yet on my computer.
It
It's
hates
so
you.
weird.
It does. Did you hurt yourself?
It's one of those like odd positions that you're putting your hand in or your arm in when you're also lifting something, and so you feel like the muscle or tendon just go over the bone, and you're
Oh
just like
yeah, I love
that.
that shit.
Yeah. Ba, ba, ba. Watch anything good this week? I haven't.
I actually started season 2 of Invincible because it's finally finished, so I can binge watch it all.
Yeah, I obviously it's on my list of things to watch, but I haven't started it yet. How was it?
Oh, it's good. They are obviously skipping some things. Um,
Can only imagine.
yeah, not a whole lot of stuff, but like just filler stuff. But um, it's at the point where he's already gone to that other planet to meet up with his dad again and meet
Okay.
and meet his little brother. Um, and they did a essentially a whole episode on Alan the alien, um, which is pretty cool because they did the whole intro like Alan.
Mm-hmm.
But it was pretty funny because it started off with Mark and his girlfriend banging for the first time. They're like, the narrator comes on and goes, well, let's give them some time. And I was like, hey, hey. Then it went off to tell the story of Alan the alien, which we obviously met at the end of last season
Yeah.
in the show. And then, so it explained where he came from and all this stuff. And then essentially leads up to the attack on the planet that his dad's on by the Viltrumites.
Okay.
But it's cool because their season 2 starts with the introduction of Langston, the guy who does the portals and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But they start with an alternate world where Mark and his father joined forces instead of fighting each other,
Oh boy.
and so they took over the planet and started mopping up resistance people. So it's pretty fun. But I just wish there was, obviously like 4 or 5 seasons to watch because
Yeah.
it is one of my favorite comic books and it's a fun time. So,
It really does feel like they're taking their time in making this too,
yep,
because it felt like a year passed since season one. Like
we
the
got
little
season, yeah, we got the Adam Eve
like one
episode,
episode or whatever it was, 1 or 2 episodes.
yeah, and then we got season 2 part 1 late last year, and then just
Oh,
recently part
okay.
2 came out. So I want to say
So they
part
have been sprinkling it out. I just didn't realize that they split the season two into
2
two parts.
parts.
Did I watch that then? Now I don't remember. I'd have to go back to my Amazon account.
I know I didn't because once they said part 2, and I was like, well, I'm not gonna wait We're not gonna
Right.
watch it and wait again. I've already waited long enough for season 2.
Right.
Y'all motherfuckers can wait. That's why I was excited when they announced that they're dropping all episodes of Fallout day one.
Yeah, which is weird.
Yeah.
Like a lot of streaming companies have been getting away from the drop everything at once, and they've kind of gone back to just sprinkling things out over time. But to just do that, all right, whatever. I'm down for it.
They did a. There's actually I don't think I sent it to you guys. But there was a cool behind the scenes thing talking about like the it's called from console to. What did they say? It was console to screen, console to. I don't remember what it was. Basically, Bethesda released it. It's a production done by Amazon, but Bethesda released it first, and then it came out on Amazon Video, YouTube page. But it's basically it's Todd Howard talking about being involved and how people and companies started gaining interest in making a Fallout something
Mm-hmm.
after the release of Fallout 3, because obviously that was the one where it kind of changed the game
Yeah.
fundamentally, going from like a top-down dungeon crawler style game to basically being an RPG. And how they kept turning everything down because it just obviously it wasn't really time to do it, and they're very big on controlling their IPs, because that's what happens when you're your own company. You don't have to. You're not looking to do it. So he was talking about how like they never really got the right pitch, and then Jonathan Nolan came around, and Todd's like clearly it's he's played the games, he loves the games, and what he wants to do with it is exactly what we would want to be done with which is essentially not adapting a previous story, but doing what they do with every game, which is creating a new narrative within the same world, but somewhere else. You know what I mean? So that's what it was pretty cool to see that.
And I do like that too, because then you're not relying upon things that people have already seen, and then they're expecting to see stuff like that in it. When they don't get it, some people get upset about it.
Yeah.
And B, like the way you play that game is kind of making it very much your own, because it is an RPG, like you said. So if you go off and do your own thing, then people don't necessarily have that like investment in it, because it's not being shown the way they played it, type
Yeah.
of thing. Yeah.
And you're not
And like you said, every game hasn't like really built off the other games, at least story wise. Technology wise, yeah, they generally get better over time.
yeah.
That's maybe a questionable statement too.
Yeah.
But yeah, like now it's a different thing. It's a different story, because that's how they always are. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. But I like that approach to it. And then they talked about I don't remember the name of the company that did it, but the company that built the Brotherhood of Steel armor basically made a functional set of armor that would normally in the real world weigh thousands of pounds, but built it around the stunt performer so he can move in it freely.
That's cool.
And his acting in it makes it look heavy. But obviously, in the world of Fallout, it's a mechanically assisted suit, so it uses the hydraulics and the motors to help you move that thousands of pounds around. But they did that, and then they showed something from the trailer that I didn't notice. They didn't even bring it up. They just showed it, and probably because it was a longer shot, but it was basically a bunch of the power, like 4 or 5, walking, and they looked like they're walking on a tarmac. And as they're walking, sparks are shooting off their feet, off the pavement.
Okay.
Which would obviously happen if you're very large and you're not stepping fully. You're probably a little bit of dragging and resistance on there, and so you see sparks coming off. I was like, that's actually a pretty cool detail.
That is a cool detail.
So,
yeah.
kind of fun that way too.
Right.
Let's see here. They announced the actress who's going to be playing the Silver Surfer.
I did see that.
Which is interesting because she has been the character they're choosing. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if you know too much about Fantastic Four.
Not a whole lot, no.
So the actress Julie Gardner, who came to fame of off the show Ozark,
Hmm.
and apparently something called Netflix scammer biopic, Inventing Anna. I don't know what that is, but
No.
she's gonna play Shala Ball, who is a long time running character, but she is actual wife of Norrin Rad, who was the previous Silver Surfer.
Okay.
And if I remember correctly, which I might be missing some steps in there, but basically, um, Silver Surfer was then obviously her husband, um, and he was instructed by Galactus to basically take her world, and then she basically like convinced him not to. It's a bunch of stuff, but basically, I don't remember when at one point she did take over the mantle, but she does take over the mantle. So it's interesting they chose her, but also I don't know if they're going to go into too much of it because obviously you're introducing Silver Surfer for the first time in the MCU.
Hmm.
But anyhow, that's so I thought that was an interesting choice. People are like, "Oh, they're woke." I'm like, "Oh God, calm down."
Yeah, that's some of the articles that I've seen. Unfortunately, that's just some of the articles I see in general. Talk about anything, video games, movies, anything. Just everything is just going woke. It's so stupid. But especially when it's like that. That's the upsetting thing mostly about that is like you already have that in comics. Like I've literally seen people saying that turning Nick Fury white would be something or other. I can't remember what, and I'm like, do you not realize that there is a different universe where Nick Fury was white
Like
years ago?
the original.
The original, like, why are we doing this, people?
Yeah, but yeah, so it's because I want to say it was. I think it was the limited the I don't know if you ever read them, but there's a series of books, well, series called Earth X, Universe X, and Paradise X, I believe.
I think I've read the covers of
Yeah,
some of those.
yeah, they're very iconic because they have really distinctive covers
Mm-hmm.
done by Alex Ross. But in that, I believe is when she was depicted
Mm-hmm.
as um, Silver Surfer, but it was they were I think they were both at one point. Both Norrin Rad and Shala Ball were both Silver Surfers
Okay.
in that series. I can't remember though.
So the only thing I wonder then is, are they going to still introduce her as like the second Silver Surfer, or is it just like
That's what I mean. Is like
that's it?
because even Norrin Rad wasn't the first Silver Surfer.
Yeah, that's true.
He was the first Silver Surfer that Earth met.
Yeah.
Because he is the Herald of Galactus, who is basically coming to let you know, like, hey,
You're gonna
bro,
be
your shit's about to get fucked. So if you have the means to defend yourself, which is probably not going to work, or
mm-hmm.
get the fuck out of here, I would do the latter for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Because the former seems like a real bad idea. So I can't remember. I don't remember um what was the reason why there was two of them in Earth X. It's been a long time. Actually, probably
You probably have it back there
they
somewhere.
might be next to me somewhere. Those three books are super rad because they're alternative stories,
Mm-hmm.
multiverse stories if you really want. But I can't remember what it was that the reason there was two of them. But I do know that it was the rebirth of Galactus at one point,
Okay.
or reborn Galactus, and he was um because I think it was they explained it in the book that the Fantastic Four figured out a way to kill him, and he was reborn after that. And I think that's why there was two of them, because like the power was split. I can't remember. It's been so long, but I do believe that's the book she appeared in as Silver Surfer for the first time. I could be wrong though. It's been a long, long time. I mean, obviously, if it was 1990, 99 or 98 is when that book came out. So it's been a while since I've read that. But I guess I saw people online talking about how it's like, oh, I can't believe they made a lady Silver Surfer. Blah blah. I'm like, well, she wasn't the first and won't be the last, I'm sure.
Right.
It's just they're just trying to be a little different than the last time Silver Surfer was on screen.
Right.
Don't get me wrong.
Who played him?
So
That?
voiced by Morpheus, Fishburne,
Fishburne. Yeah.
and then but the body, the physical acting was done by oh my god, am I spacing on his name? Doug Jones.
I was literally going to say probably Doug Jones because that's just what Doug Jones is.
Yeah, so he was the physical form, the physical actor, that obviously portrayed it wore the suit and did the motions.
Mm-hmm.
And then I want to say, I know she was in the short-lived Silver Surfer cartoon, but she never took the mantle in the show. I don't think she was just his romantic partner, and I think she was a leader of their planet too.
Okay.
I don't remember what it was. It's been fucking forever, but I thought it was interesting that they announced that. And I like that. I like that Julie Garner lady from Ozark. So it was pretty good.
Show I never watched. But that's no surprise.
Yeah, not really. No.
Man.
Let's see, what else is there? They announced a new Matrix movie being helmed by Drew Goddard, which is pretty dope.
That's cool, but like I said in the text messages, I still never even finished watching the third movie, and I never even watched the fourth movie. No, it just doesn't feel like it has the draw to me, like at least the first one did, and
no, because
the second one didn't have much of a draw to me either, and I think that's why I never cared to finish the series.
Yeah, because the second one was so. That's when they like. Not that the first one was convoluted, right? But the second one and the third one is where it like really got a little too bizarre in a way, and they just kind of like, and obviously I don't think they really planned how much was going past the first one, because obviously the end of the first one, he sort of wins, but like obviously like he didn't if you pay attention, and there was a lot of cool aspects of the second one, and the third one just got weird as shit. The whole like Jesus allegory and shit. But and I haven't actually watched the new one, Resurrections.
Yeah, something like that.
I saw the trailer and I was like,
Okay.
Okay, like it's a sort of a reboot. I guess.
I have no idea.
Yeah, I was like, all right, I'll watch it eventually. It's on Max, I think.
Probably.
But it was one of those movies that suffered quite a bit. A, because it was like, why did we wait so long to get a fucking fourth one? But also, why did we make a fourth one? But it came out during the full on that 1 year of day-to-date release on streaming as well as theaters.
Right.
That was happening. So obviously, it didn't make the numbers they were already hoping in theaters.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure it didn't do what. But it's interesting that Drew Goddard is involved is really what got my interest because I'm a big fan of Drew Goddard.
Oh, yeah.
So, that makes me interested. But this is so far what the they haven't fully announced everything yet. It just says that Warner Brothers is heading back into the Matrix, and this time Drew Goddard is leading the charge. Goddard is a fan favorite writer-director whose credits include The Martian, The Cabin in the Woods. I don't like the fact they ever throw this in there, World War Z, because he did write the script. It's not his fault, I understand. Because
it was an okay movie. It was a very okay movie.
It was an okay movie based on a really
one of those
book.
Things, if you didn't, if you didn't say, hey, this is based off of World War Z, it probably would have been a better movie. But because you based it off of World War Z and then didn't do anything from the book essentially,
Yeah.
uh, then yeah, it didn't do so well.
Yep.
Speaking of which,
Yes.
I finally like speaking of book adaptation to movies. Like this was probably like 4 or 5 weeks ago. I finally got around to watching John Dies at the End movie.
Oh yeah.
That is trash. That movie is trash.
It
Like
is.
it's been a hot minute since I read that book, so it's been like over a year or something like that. And just out of nowhere, I was looking for something to watch on something to watch on TV one day, and I was like, oh. I have never seen John Dies at the End movie. It's right there. Let's go ahead. Let's do this. Let's see how it is. Because I remember you vaguely talking about it, but I can't remember if you said it was good or bad or anything like that.
I enjoy it, but I don't enjoy it as an adaptation of the book.
Fair.
Because it's the book. The movie is very campy, and like it's one of those like I enjoy it because it's more ridiculous than it is anything else. But it's not like it's not a good movie.
It is not at all. I will admit that even in the book and in the movie, I like how both start because they're both the paranormal investigators and they're up against that fucking meat monster, and I'm like, this is hilarious. I do kind of wish the whole book and the whole movie was more of this, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But then as the movie goes on, I'm sitting there going, I know it's been a while since I read this book, but I'm pretty sure there's a whole thing missing right here. Like, just a whole thing. Like, they finally even get to, like, to going to Vegas in the movie, and then they don't go. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure that they went here, and they immediately just end up going right to the mall. And I'm like, that's the end of the book. What happened to the middle of the book here? And even then, it's actually not even the end of the... Sorry, it's not the end of the book. It's like the... See, now I'm even getting myself confused. The mall was the end of the book, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, the Vegas trip seemed like it was the end of the movie, almost, when that was only even like a third of the way through the book. And then they skipped over all of this, the shadow stuff that happens,
Going to the other
jellyfish stuff,
the other world.
What?
Going to the other world.
Going to the other world and everything, and then it just ends with the dog taking one for the team, and I'm just like, this movie was garbage. What the fuck? Why did you think that you could just adapt this, and instead of like maybe slightly changing things around and compacting things like you did, you just literally just went chop, chop, does not exist in the movie. Let's just keep going.
Yeah.
It felt like one of those things that, no, you definitely shouldn't have done this as a movie. You should have done this as like a miniseries or something like
For
that.
sure. And in that we've had discussions several times, but that's how we feel about a lot of books and properties. There are several books that you can make a concise movie out of. And I had this discussion yesterday with Paige because yesterday was the 50th right 50th anniversary of Carrie.
Oh wow!
The Stephen King book.
Yeah.
And the fact that obviously they made a movie, Brian De Palma made a sequel, and then made another movie. That book is one of those ones. It's a fairly short book, but it's the story you can tell in an hour and a half, 2 hour long movie with no problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
It, on the other hand, obviously needed to be 2 movies, and they skipped a lot of stuff in those 2 movies to make the 2 movies. Obviously, they did a mini series, which they also skipped a bunch of stuff because there's a lot of interactions and things that didn't show up in either the mini series or the movies. And I forgot to look this up the other day because I was thinking about it. I wonder what the runtime difference is between the miniseries and the 2 movies. Because wasn't the miniseries basically 2 parts?
Was like an hour long for 4 days.
I can't remember because I remember later on they released them as like two movies essentially, right, or two parts.
I can't remember. Obviously,
Yeah.
that's been so long.
And the last time I watched it was the combined, so it was like the whole thing together. Well, actually, I think the last time we watched it, I think is when the last time I watched it is when we all watched it together many years ago.
Okay, so it was 2 episodes long,
Yeah.
according to Wikipedia at least.
And they were both like an hour and a half, right?
Here it says runtime of the original VHS. Which, okay, that's weird. So, according to Wikipedia, the runtime is 192 minutes for the original VHS version, but the Blu-ray DVD version is 187 minutes. So I don't know if they cut something out or just didn't
What?
cut much out, but still different
That's weird.
runtimes. But yeah, we'll take the original version 192. I'm going to do some math here. Divided by 60. That gives us 3.2 hours.
All right. And so the new ones are. Let's see here, if you can pull it up faster than me, but.
I was going to say this is dueling gigabit internets, but for some reason, just Googling it went fuck.
So it chapter 1 is 135 minutes. So obviously it's gonna be longer.
So 135. And then what was the second one?
Let's pull it up. Dun, 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 dun. Chapter 2 was 169 minutes. So clearly longer.
Yeah, that's 304 minutes. And that comes out to 5 hours.
Yeah. So
A little over 5 hours.
yeah, so they definitely obviously almost doubled it. And still told the same amount of story, just obviously with like much better special effects, and I would argue to say better acting.
I would argue as well.
But yeah, so it's one of those things where it comes down to like there's just certain books you definitely cannot do a movie out of and make it well done.
Yeah.
And to stick on the topic of Stephen King, he's obviously had a lot of adaptations of his work throughout the years.
He does.
And there's been several that are very good adaptations. Some of them are novellas. So like The Shawshank Redemption, for example, Green Mile, which is actually technically a short story, if I'm not mistaken.
It's a short story and a bunch of other compilation of stories.
Yeah, but the point is there's a lot of very good books or novellas and short stories you can obviously make into a very good, well-made movie. And then there's failures like the Dark Tower movie, which,
unfortunately,
if you look at it, it's not technically an adaptation of the book. It's actually technically a sequel. If you remember, at the end of the whole series, he goes back using the Dark Tower to essentially find a way to save the worlds. Because at the end, it's precipice of this is the apocalypse of all the worlds, and he's obviously at the Dark Tower, which is the linchpin of all those worlds, the key world as I believe they called it. So he goes back, and when he goes back, things are slightly altered, but he also brings back the horn. And if you when you pay attention to the movie, he has the horn.
No, I didn't realize that.
And obviously in the whole stipulation is he doesn't remember what happened.
Yeah.
He's just basically he resets his life to go back and do it again.
That's right.
So technically, when he goes back this time, what we're watching in the movie is an alternate path he was taking.
I mean, that does change the perception of that movie.
Now, don't get me wrong, the movie was not good comparative to that. But what they did do in that movie is they tried to combine the story of all those books down to one story, because he literally was fast tracking from the beginning to the Dark Tower itself.
Yeah. And
because
there's,
they did call it the Dark Tower, which if you go by that should have been the last book,
mhm.
because it was the Dark Tower. But ultimately it was the story of Roland and Jake, and obviously their fight against the Man in Black. But that's how I always looked at it, because when I noticed those details, I'm like, oh, so if you know the content, he has, I can't remember the name of the horn, but he has the horn, which means this is not the same run through. And because when you get to the end, that was the mind blower to me. And I remember, I don't know if we ever talked about this. That was the mind blower to me, is when you get to the end of the story of the Dark Tower books, you literally find out that this isn't his first appearance there.
Yeah,
And you're like,
yeah.
oh shit, he is stuck in this
He's been doing this for a
Groundhog's Day
while.
life. Instead of being one day, it's literally like his entire life. And you then in my brain I always jump to, dang, I wonder what the other versions of it were, because this was not, it was success but not a success,
Hmm.
because he didn't really stop the destruction. He just mitigated the end for at least his own timeline, like his own life. So when he goes back and resets everything, he doesn't know the choices he made clearly, because he doesn't remember ever being at the tower. But he has been there before, and he starts to remember that he was there before. But then when he goes back, he's fresh again. So it means he gets to relive his father's death, and go through and maybe not bring Jake along, because like in the movie, he essentially saves Jake from dying. He doesn't really, obviously, because he ends up in Midworld. So all those little things, but yeah, it's always interesting to me to think that. But yeah, and I could be wrong, because they never really tell you this. But if you've read the books, and digested the books like I have, you would realize. To me, it makes the movie make more sense as a sequel to the books versus an adaptation of the books.
Hmm.
But we can talk about that later when the Mike Flanagan show comes out and hopefully actually gets finished and doesn't just get axed halfway through, because it's going to be a long burn if he wants to do one season per book.
Right.
And so much so that, like, if you do that, there's going to be some real confusing things, because when you get to like the Wizard in Glass,
Hmm.
it's technically a story that happens beforehand.
Yeah.
So, and the other thing I was actually thinking about this the other day, and I don't get to talk about these things when I'm by myself, other than to the voices in my head. But if I'm not mistaken, the Wizard of Oz, which appears sort of in the Dark Tower series,
Yeah, because he's traveling towards the Emerald. They're traveling towards the Emerald City
is public domain.
when they stop to. I wouldn't doubt it. Yeah.
So they technically could still use the Emerald City in the show without having to, because that's the weird thing about books and pop culture in general. You can mention things, like you can say like, hey, I'm a big, like we've talked about this before, because like with Ready Player One and Ready Player Two and Andromeda, or Armada, not Andromeda, Armada. Ernest Cline is a very big pop culture person, and he uses those because he's not telling the story of Star Wars or Back to the Future or any of that. He's literally using them as pop culture references
Hmm.
and utilizing the idea that Wade or Parzival is flying an X-wing. In your brain, you automatically know what an X-wing looks like, so you can picture in your mind's
Yeah.
eye as you read. So when they did the movie, obviously they couldn't use there was a lot of things they couldn't use directly because of copyright infringement, because of IPs. But in a book, you have that opposite. So like Stephen King could use the Emerald City because in our mind's eye we know what the Emerald City looks like.
Yes.
But if you were to put that on screen, you may not be able to get away with it, but it's public domain. So as long as you don't use the physical look from the movie,
Yes.
which is copyrighted,
Yes.
you could put it in there. It would just be a city that's emerald and has a big wall around it.
And
So
you could call it the Emerald City.
yeah,
Yeah. That's what I'm looking at. It looks like the book, The Wizard of Oz, entered public domain back in 1956.
yeah, because it's old
But
as
you're
fuck.
right. The Dorothy, or the film Wizard of Oz is still under copyright.
Yeah. So
So
you
as
could,
long as you don't try and copy anything from the movie,
which I mean, he doesn't really
you
in the
just
book
stick to the
anyways.
story,
Yeah,
you should be okay.
yeah. So because you can utilize that because of public domain.
As long as you just don't link it to the old movie.
Exactly. So you just have to make the city look not like it did in the movie.
Which you'd want to do your own thing anyway.
Yeah, I mean, because really, you don't even get like in
It
the
would
books.
be hilarious though, because you do get parts of that in the movie. The Emerald City, when you see it from distance, is literally just a matte painting. So
Yeah.
it would, to me, be hilarious if they would just get a matte painting artist to do that in the show, rather than make it a full-on like CG world type thing.
Yeah, because they don't even get to go into the Emerald City in the book.
Well, they do, and not, but it's at the end.
Yeah, that's what it means. They don't. Like, it's not
They're
like
working their
the
way to it, and that's what the Wisdom Glass is. Is like, yeah, they start off in the world of the stand. There's just outside of the world of the stand is where they pitch a fire to camp for the night, and then that's when he tells the story of the Wizard of Glass, and
which
then,
is about him and his former quartet battling
Yeah.
against one of the variations of the Randall Flagg
Black.
Man in Black, many
And
different
then
names.
At the end of it is when they do arrive at the Emerald City, and that's when you do get the full revelation of who Randall Flagg is and the Man in Black.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because you get essentially the different stories are them camping on their way to the Emerald City. So as the book is progressed, it's Roland telling the story, and they're every time it's them sitting around the campfire closer to the Emerald City at the end they get to. I'm saying in that one they don't really like. I mean they do go in, but like not in that one. But again, you just have to make it look like nothing else you've seen on screen.
Yeah.
But yeah, so little things like that. And back to your point that we got on this weird tangent. No, John Dies at the End movie is not good, but it's like the good bad or bad, the good bad.
You enjoyed it. I actually didn't really enjoy it. There are parts of it that I enjoyed. Like I said, it is funny at the beginning to see the meat monster, and that interaction with it. It had pretty decent visuals for such a low budget movie, and there is funny parts of it to see, like the actual acting out of the, like when he gets arrested and John keeps calling him, but from like a completely dead and broken cell phone or from a hot dog. Like it is funny to actually see that stuff in on TV rather than just reading it. But the fact that they just cut so much out of it,
to
me is just like, it's not a good movie, and it's not even like a good bad movie to me.
And it has been a while. It's been a while since I've seen it. But yeah, it's definitely not great by any stretch of the imagination. But to me it's a fun watch. So my favorite part about that is, do you know who the filmmaker was?
I don't remember. No.
So is a gentleman that goes by the name of, his name is, and I'm going to butcher his last name, is Don Casarelli, I believe is how it's pronounced. But he has done, for you, the one that you would probably, two. So, because I don't know if you've ever seen the Phantasm movies.
I mean, I've seen the covers.
Yeah, but he did the Beastmaster.
Okay. Yeah.
And he also did Boba Hotep.
Oh, I love that movie.
Yeah. So he's definitely this weird genre type person. But he did I want to say he did all four of the Phantasm movies, the Beastmaster way back in the day. and he did Bubba Hotep, which is a fucking awesome movie in general. Um, but yeah, it's not like he's done like groundbreaking work by any stretch of the imagination. But he has done quite a few things. And then like the have you read any more of the John Dies at the End series?
No, I have yet to.
Okay. Because he has like there's John Dies at the End. This book is full of spiders.
Yep.
Then there's What the Hell Did I Just Read?
Mm-hmm.
And then If This Book Exists, You're in the Wrong Universe. And then the newest one, which will be, well, I don't know if he actually has a title for that one yet, but there's another one that he's supposed to be working on right now, I think, because his other book series he has is the Zoe Stark series, and that one, the third book in that one, second book just came out last year. And those ones are funny because there's Future Violence in Fancy Suits is the first one, and then Zoe Punches the Future in the Dick is the second one. Oh no, that's the third. No, that's the second one. The third one came out this year or last year. It's called Zoe is Too Drunk for This Dystopia. Was the new one. That's right. There was a third one. I was like, hey, wait a minute. That's not the first. That's not the last one. And then of course the film that Joe just mentioned was an adaptation of the first John Dies book, which is not a good movie, but not even a good adaptation because there's just too much weird shit happening in those that you need to make, and it doesn't really happen. But whatever.
Yeah.
It's also hard to explain that book to somebody. Because like it's written by David Wong, who's not actually David Wong, but it's written as like a retelling of his story in the book, and the title, much like all the other titles, are sort of misleading because John doesn't die at the end.
Yeah, I was completely waiting for him to die. And it's just like, he didn't die at the end. You lied to me, title. Can't judge a book by its cover.
And it's funny because like and I don't want to spoil nothing for you. I'm not spoiling it, I guess, really. Every book, John essentially dies, but not actually dies.
Mm-hmm.
It's very strange, but one of my favorite things in This Book Is Full of Spiders is the fact that it's literally the book, like the story, is filled with spiders, but not like normal spiders, which to Joe will make sense if you think about it, but like they're invisible to the human eye.
And that's the exact ones I was thinking about, yeah.
But they're not to John. And they're not to David.
Right.
But to everyone else, there's a part where basically there's an explosion at their house, and the police show up, and one of them gets eaten alive by the spiders, but nobody else except for John and David can see the spiders eating him alive, so it literally looks like this guy's is being chomped into, like, by nothing.
Okay.
It's fucking insane.
Okay.
Yeah, so basically they're like, hey, everyone needs to get out of here. There's spiders here, and they're like, what are you talking about? What the hell just happened? Because it's all like paranormal and like basically the verge of like not being is like seen by us, right? Mm-hmm. And then they're like, you trust us, you can't see them. Get out of here. And the cops are like, what are you two on? And then all of a sudden one of the cops just starts screaming, and everyone turns, and he's basically like chunks of him are just being pulled out of existence. Mm-hmm. And then John and David can see the spiders on him eating him.
But the cops can't see the spiders, but they still see the guy dying.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
For a second there, I thought it'd be kind of a cool trope that as soon as the dude starts getting eaten, like the other cops are just like, "What other cop?
Oh
He
yeah,
doesn't
because
exist."
he's yeah, because but it's yeah, and it's and the it's hard to explain what goes on in that book. It's hard to explain how it comes to any of these books. And the funny one is the third book, which is if this book exists, you're in the wrong universe. Is a true multiverse story,
Hmm.
but uses things that have happened in the past
Hmm.
in the other books. So if you don't read those, he does do a pretty good job of recapping some of the stuff, but like leaves out a lot of the experiences they've had. But the third one revolves around. So I mean, I don't know if you know or not, but in our current world, there's a very popular trend of having toys that are based around an app.
Yeah.
So much like a Furby. So remember Furbies, right?
Yes, I do remember Furbies.
Little mechanical devils that were possessed by, I'm
Yep.
pretty sure, the souls of the children who built them in other countries.
Hmm.
So that was kind of like one of those first interactive toys. Like you did things to make it not fucking wake up in the middle of the night or whatever, feed it and pet it, and all that fun stuff, right? Later on, I guess they introduced an app that allows you to like give it treats and shit. But there's other ones that like you are trying to hatch an egg, for example, right? And you have to use the app to interact with the egg, and then if you do it properly, the egg hatches and you get like this gift, right? It's like plushie of a fucking dragon or some shit. That's what this book is like. The antithesis of this book is about. Like the plot revolves around this like doom cult, wink wink, doom cult, because that's a thing. Is trying to hatch this multi-dimensional creature through this toy. So the
Okay.
toy is literally like this app. It was created, and it like essentially just you get obsessed with it, and you start to do whatever it wants, and then eventually asks you to start feeding your toy actual human body parts,
Okay.
like 300 human ears and shit like that. And
Hmm.
it's basically the more, and yeah, dude, it's fucking wild, dude. I'm like, what is happening? But just like in all of his books, that's more of a MacGuffin type thing, where it's existing, but like obviously it's not like the whole plot because like it's just a thing. But he uses that as part of it. It's hard to again, it's hard to explain any of these
It's hard to
books,
explain. Yeah, I got it.
but it's just when you're reading it, you're like, at one point, you forget about the fucking egg, and you're like,
Hmm.
wait, hold on, what happened to the egg? And all sorts of weird shit, and like, yeah, it's fucking wild, dude. But it's a fun time, just like the other ones. I highly recommend those books to
I'll
anybody.
eventually get around to to reading them.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm reading one book, a book right now about time travel and stuff like that. I can't even remember the name of it. It's like now, then, and every when or something like that. It was one of those. It was one of those like free books from not free books, but like Amazon early. I can't remember what they call them.
Oh, if you go Amazon Prime, you get those fucking first reads.
Yeah, you can get the first reads, and I had finished a different book, and I was just like, I'm not really sure what I'm interested in right now. And I was like, wait, didn't I get one of those first reads like months ago? And I had to like fucking scroll back through my list of books that I've been reading and had to find it. And I'm like, oh yeah, shit, let's go ahead and read this. It's interesting and okay. Right now, I'm very early on in it, so I'm not really sure what's going on. Just something about historians in the future that have time travel, and they have the ability to go back and like they're observing events without trying to like fuck up history type of thing. So far, it's semi interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just finished the Stephen King's on writing book, which is like sort of a memoir biography book, but also just like his how, because people always ask him like, how do you come up with your stories and how do you write? So it's basically him talking about how he believes, he perceives how it's done. And obviously he says other people have other ideas, but this is how it works for me. And but gives him like kind of goes over his life story of how he got to where he is, which is pretty cool.
I'm pretty sure that The Simpsons got it right when they wrote that. There was an episode where they did a little stint of like, how does Stephen King come up with this stuff, and he's sitting in front of his editor, and his editor's like, "Hey, what's your next book about?" And he's just like, he's looking around, and he grabs like a plant, and he's just like, "It's about a killer plant." And the editor is just like, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "How much do you want?"
Yeah, so it's actually pretty interesting. And then I finished that one, and now I'm actually listening to the Ron Perlman autobiography. He writes it, but wrote it with somebody else, obviously. And that dude's life is nuts, bro.
Is it?
Yeah, dude. Like he fell into a lot of stuff. Like he never wanted to go into acting, but the school drama teacher approached his swim coach and said, "Hey, we're mandating students to come try out for a play. So anybody who's not really cutting it in like sports were sent to go like." And he was on the swim team, but he wasn't really like, he was on the swim team but like wasn't really helping the swim team. So his coach said, "Yeah, you're gonna go try out for this play."
You're so far benched that you're now in the drama team.
Yeah, dude, it's fucking nuts. And then he fell in love with it. Like he loved acting at that point. So like, and then it was crazy, dude. But yeah, it's a really good read. His life is kind of nuts because like his first like agent that he ever like got approached by told him that like he's really talented, but his acting style and like his look are so vastly different because he acts old but it looks out of place. Mm-hmm. So nobody's gonna hire him until he's like in his 40s.
Yeesh.
And like and he's like so you want to sign with me? He's like, you just told me you can't get me work until I'm 40 something and I'm 26.
Yeah.
He's like, well, yeah, but we can keep trying. He's like, no. And like, yeah, it was fucking wild, dude. It was, yeah, it's pretty crazy. But yeah, so that, and then oddly enough, through Audible, there's a free version of 1984. The George Orwell. Yeah, but it's a multiple cast, and it's like Andrew Garfield, Tom Hardy, and a couple other people are in it. And I was like, all right, well, free.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I was like, free. Give me free.
I love that type of stuff. It's weird that it's been. I feel like it's been popping up more and more in even just regular books that I read. They're just like, oh, this is a multicast. Okay, that I didn't know that. I just bought the book and then was like, yeah, Whisper Sync. Give me the Audible book for $1 or something. Sure.
Yeah.
I'm pleasantly surprised that it ends up being a multicast.
Yeah. Oh, right now, if you want, the ebook for The Mist by Stephen King is $1.99 on Amazon.
That's pretty cool.
So if you want to read that one, you can. It does have Whisper Speak for like $8.99 though, but if you want this ebook, it's $1.99 right now.
That was a short story too, wasn't it?
It was a novella,
was
yeah.
That novella? Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's only like 200 something pages.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, buying an $8 audiobook for that. It's one of those things that I'd probably buy and then hold on to where I can't, because every once in a while you run into those books that are like, they don't offer the Whisper Sync, so you have to choose one or the other. Do I want to listen to it or do I want to read it? So that'd probably fall within one of those things of like, well, I can listen to this book and read this book at the same time.
Yeah. So, but yeah, if you want it, it's just go to Amazon and it's on there. You have to be careful though, because
the day takes me.
There's 2 versions of it, but yeah.
Because there's always multiple versions. I remember running into that when I was looking for like some of the older books, like Dracula or Frankenstein or something, stuff like that, where it's like, okay, what is the good version here? Just give me the good version.
Yeah. You
have like 50 different versions on here. You know, just give me the good one.
It's true.
Yeah.
Well, that's all I have, and we're at the pretty much hour point, so we'll probably wrap it up unless you have anything else.
I cannot think of anything.
Okay. All right. Well, in that case, we will call it. This has been this week's episode of Comes Naturally. We have been
Joe.
Ivan, Cody, and as usual, you fuckers just came naturally.
Bye.
That was abrupt.